Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us for our November webinar. I hope everyone's keeping well. Before we get started on our agenda for today, we'll go through the usual housekeeping. So Stephen, I hope will take us through that. If I can click the right things. Oh, there we go.
Wonderful. Thank you, Imogen. So today's session is being recorded and it will be shared with all registrants later this week. So if you would like to share this recording with a colleague who was unable to attend, or if you would like to revisit any of the content covered in today's session, you can. A copy of the slides and the Q&A will also be sent to registrants next week. So regarding the audio for the session is available through your computer speakers or by dialing in by phone. If you're experiencing poor sound quality at any time through your computer speakers, you may wish to try dialing into the session by your phone instead. This can be done by accessing your device settings at the top of your screen within the Teams session. So all you have to do is click the three dots for more settings, then select device settings and device settings in the device settings area, and this will open at the right-hand side. So for participants will remain muted throughout the session. However, there is a chat area which you can also access at the top right corner of your screen. And we will be monitoring this throughout the session. So please feel free to submit any questions you may have. Thank you. So let's move forward to our presenters for today. Now introducing our presenters, as always, you'll be joined by myself and Imogen. My name is Stephen. I am a customer support advisor at CLA, providing first line support for the DCS. And Imogen is our senior product manager for the DCS. And we're very happy to be joined also by a wonderful CLA panel today. We have together with us James, who is the head of the right holder relationship and content acquisition. We also have Margaret, our education customer support coordinator, and Sarah, our education development manager. So now we're going to view our agenda for today. So first of all, we're going to go over some team updates. Next, we're going to go over the DCS updates that happened on the 16th of November. And we will end up the session with you asking us whatever questions you have in mind. So feel free to add those questions in the chat. So now I'll be passing over to Imogen.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Stephen. So to start off with, we have just a very quick update for the DCS team. As you know, Cameron recently left the CLA to pursue exciting opportunities elsewhere, which means that we are now hiring for a new customer support advisor. So I just wanted really to let you know that that means CLA can offer an opportunity for someone else who might be looking for pastures new. So this is my alt text image showing an image of horses in a grassy field representing pastures new. I do like a nice image. So as DCS users, most of you will have had some kind of interaction with Cameron and or Stephen and have a fairly good sense of at least one aspect of the role. This position will provide support to DCS customers, but also users of our other technology, such as that to support the school's license, and then potentially other things in the future. So we thought that we might just mention it today, and if you know of anyone who might be suitable, might be interested, please do tell them about the opportunity. Stephen, can I ask you just to pop the website link into the chat for me? Otherwise, if you go onto our CLA website to the Work For Us section, then you'll see the link to the job post there. Yes, we thought it might be interesting to get somebody who's familiar with the setup of the DCS and the HE license. Good. Now on to the DCS itself. So what's been happening in the platform? As Stephen said, there was the release on the 16th of November. This was originally set for the previous week, but there was an issue that meant it couldn't be completed. One of the kind of pre-release protocol stages hadn't been completed fully. Processes have now been updated to ensure that this doesn't happen again, but we did release. And there were two main elements to this. One was the data purge that we've been talking about for some weeks now, and the other was the code update. So let's start with the data cleanup. We ran a script to delete all courses and request data relating to academic years prior to 2021 from our main DCS database. So I've sort of grayed out the actual numbers and the remaining ones, but you can see now that there are no courses for years prior to 2021. So this was deployed successfully, but the high-level data does remain in our data warehouse. So that's available for interrogation through the reporting system. So you can still run HEI reports for all years. So HEI reports still available, but the actual requests have been deleted. We're going to monitor feedback from you and look at performance in the system. And I would imagine that this will then become an annual activity in the DCS after rollover. So come summer next year, we'll sort of revisit any feedback we've had from you. So if anything comes up, please tell us. We'll look at performance, and then we'll look to see whether this becomes an annual activity. There was also a code update. So that released a couple of things. So this was a little bug. We had a glitch whereby the added by column, or added on rather, the date column wasn't sorting immediately, and the user had to click a couple of times to get the list. So that's been corrected. The system now remembers that you want the page sorted by date. We have a kind of slight aesthetic change, again, just correcting something we noticed while we were testing that the recent Born Digital content upload, that there was a bit of a glitch in the design, and if the title took it over 2 lines, sorry, then that icon was stretched, as you can see on the left. So we've now fixed that, and the icon appears correctly. So that's, yeah, good for people who get upset by upsetting design like me. We've got at least one more bug fix coming up very shortly, and then we're going through technical assessment for future improvements. The future things haven't got fixed plans with release dates yet, but I just want to let you know what's coming soon. So very soon, as in we're just testing it, and we'll hopefully be releasing it very shortly, is an update on duplicate journal articles. So we discovered, so first of all, it should not be possible to have 2 records with exactly the same metadata for a full journal article. We should only be able to have 1 journal article, yes, multiple scans for it, but only 1 record. We discovered that it is possible, there's a sort of backdoor to accidentally creating 2. So if you've created a journal record, but you haven't inserted all of the metadata, so perhaps you haven't included the volume and the issue, and then you return later to add the issue, actually you were able to do that even if there was already a full record. And then the result would be these 2 identical records for the same thing, which is obviously not desirable. So they have actually created a bug fix for this. So basically, if you try to then add the missing metadata, and it would result in 2 full records, then there'll be an error message saying that this can't be done. So if you do, I mean, it's not terribly common, but if you do come up against that, what should you do? Well, hopefully you'll be at a stage where you can just go, oh, okay, that's fine, delete the one that you were creating and attach to the one that already exists. However, if there's an issue with that, I don't know, you think there's an error in the original metadata, or it's not as simple as that, then just contact us and we'll work through it together and find a solution. Okay, then next things we're working on. So lots of you have mentioned how frustrating it is that you can sort by the person who requested the digitization, but not by the library staff member who's picked it up, so to whom it's assigned, which can make kind of workflow frustrating. So we'll be adding this new column, allowing you to sort by assignee. Hopefully it'll be underway very soon. It's in the next set of things that I really want to do. And then looking a little bit further in the future, we're also looking at adding additional flags for accessibility, so that when an extract's created and you're sort of uploading your scan and the information around it, we already ask you to state whether it's OCR'd. We will ask you then to state whether it includes alt text for images and any tagging for reflow. And then that should then be visible in the same way that the OCR is now. So I don't know if you can see my screen, probably not until I put a pointer on. Yeah, so in the same way that we've got the OCR column here, there'll be additional columns for alt text and tagging. This is something that we're going to look into hopefully very early in the new year. Even better if we would also like to add the option of adding little notes to each of these, so that you can provide additional information to other HEIs or to colleagues about, for example, what degree of alt text have you been able to add, what exactly is the purpose of your tagging. But we may do that as a further enhancement later, rather than with the initial change. Good. So that is the DCS update, which moves us on to our Ask Us Anything section. So, Stephen.
Yes, so this is your opportunity to ask us anything. So for those just joining, we have our wonderful CLA panel for today, which is James, who manages right holders relations and is responsible for the license development. Margaret, who deals with education license and permission queries and helps to set up the ES and second extract permission service. Sarah manages the license and acts as account manager across higher education, further education, and independent schools. And of course, Imogen, our product manager, who is responsible for the development of the DCS. So to kickstart off, I think there's a question Imogen would like to.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, first of all, we hope to be able to collect questions ahead of time, but we realised that we hadn't actually opened that facility on the team, so apologies for that. But please, yes, go ahead and add your questions to the chat. We'll pick them up. Now, as you start to add them, we were going to kick off with just a quick update on the CNAC license negotiations. So I'm going to stop sharing and ask James if he could let us know where we're at the moment, even if it's the same for those of you who are at site.
Hi, everybody. Yes, so I'm just going to give a quick update on where we are, and it is pretty much the same as we did at site. So apologies for the slight repetition. As everyone probably knows, we negotiate the license itself, the terms and the pricing with a committee convened by Universities UK and Guild HE, which is the Copyright Negotiation and Advisory Committee. They represent all state universities, and they recommend the license and the fee to the whole sector. And we usually renegotiate this license every 3 years. However, because of the pandemic, it was agreed in about 2021 that we would extend the license for an extra 2 years at the same fee and the same terms. So it's actually become a 5-year period during which we've had the same pricing since 2019, and there's been no change to the license terms. So we are currently engaged in negotiations with CNAC on the new license from August 2024. While there will be a couple of enhancements, we hope there won't be wholesale changes to the license, and primarily the discussions around a fair and reasonable fee increase for the coming period, hopefully at least a 3-year agreement. So we are currently in discussions. Things are going well, and we do hope to be able to announce an agreement on a new fee and an enhanced license terms early next year. But I can't say much more than that right now. And the other thing I wanted to do was, which actually I think answers one of the questions that's been put in the chat. Might as well do it now. So we are always trying to sign up the most relevant repertoire for our customers that they want to use under the license. And even though we have pretty much everything published in the UK covered by license, international repertoire is the thing where we need to do more work to sign up rights organizations, other ROs like CLA, and sign up other publishers. So we recently signed a new agreement with Malaysia, so we can include all works published there in our licenses. We are hopefully going to very soon sign an agreement with Colombia for all works published there. And we are in discussions with perhaps more sort of with a more material impact. Discussions are continuing with the Polish RO to have an agreement with them. And there are many others that we are in discussion with, but of course there is not an RO in every country in the world, and even when there is, they sometimes do not represent all repertoire, which brings me to the US. So as we probably all know, we don't automatically get every single publication published in the US through our bilateral agreement with the Copyright Clearance Center, even though we get millions of titles. It's not everything. So what we've been doing over a number of years, certainly almost as long as I've been at CLA, is signing up US and other non-UK, but primarily the focus is on US publishers whose works do need to be copied occasionally in universities in the UK. And of course, university and academic presses are a key part of that. So we have got over 20 US university presses already signed up directly with PLS for CLA licensing. And we are doing a lot of work to try to sign up more. I was at Frankfurt Book Fair. I met with a number of US university presses and academic publishers over there about signing up. We're also hopefully going to be working with the Association of American University Presses, as well as exploring ways we can reach some of the large Christian publishing companies in the US whose works are often needed for theology courses, for example, in the UK. So all of this is intended to increase the amount of US repertoire available to copy under the license, and we'll give periodical updates when we have some good news on that. So I hope that's useful and does answer some of the questions which may have come up. Yeah, over to you, Richard.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, James. So we can see questions coming in. There's a question by Donovan. I'm not sure if you have had
Kevin's got two questions, Stephen. I thought it might be worth starting with the second one, because actually that's repeated quite a lot around EHES. So there's a few questions around EHES. Firstly, do we have any update? I think the answer to that is not really in any great detail beyond what you will have seen that we've mentioned so far, and I think there's been in the national media now. So they've confirmed that it was a cyber attack. They're working with the National Cybersecurity Centre. They say we have no evidence that data of our users has been compromised. However, if you have a British Library login and your password is used elsewhere, we recommend changing it as a precautionary measure. So I think we would say if you do happen to use the same password for any of our CLA systems, then we would recommend changing the passwords. But beyond that, we don't have any more information. They say, although we anticipate restoring many services in the next few weeks, some disruption may persist for longer. At this point, we're unable to say which services will be restored first. We have no further information to that. This is the same information that's been given to us and is in the national media. So that brings us to the other questions around. Go on.
Well, I was just going to add, Imogen. I wasn't sure whether you were about to answer this, but the second part of Kevin's question around other suppliers.
Exactly. Yes, go for it.
I was just going to say, so obviously we are aware that there are other suppliers of document delivery services, and we have actually shared the web page on our website, which lists all the other CLA licensed document delivery suppliers. So those for whom some of their supply is licensed by us from perhaps the long tail. Obviously, we've also thought of this question, and it is something that we are considering. But I have to say that one thing that might be a challenge is that one of the reasons why the British Library delivers the EHES service is that they have a large store of book content. We are not aware that any of the other providers we could potentially work with have a large supply of book content to scan, particularly for the outsourced scanning service. So it's certainly something on our radar, but I would just sort of raise that. There's a reason why the British Library is a very important partner. But as Imogen said, we are pretty much as much in the dark as everybody else. And understandably, they are unable to tell us much right now. And we're really hoping that they get back up online. But these are really useful questions. So sorry, Imogen, if I said something you were going to say, but
no, not at all. I was going to refer to you to answer that one, actually, because that is a question that was repeated a few times about other suppliers and integrating into the DCS. I think, you know, as James has said, it's a question of, is there another one that would have the same breadth of offer? And then in parallel, it would take time, effort, quite a lot of time to create an integration. And I mean, we desperately hope that EHES will be up and running far sooner than we'd be able to get an integration working. But I can see that, you know, there's a lot of likes on that question a little further down the page. So I know it's a big issue. Yeah, I think until we get a little bit more information, we'll be waiting for EHES. Stephen, where should we go next?
Yeah, there is a question related to that by Nicola saying, is there any possibility to be able to request copyright-free paid copies via the DCS from other suppliers?
Yeah,
so
that's the one that we've just been talking about. Yeah, with now 6 likes.
I mean, I would say that we cannot prevent anybody. In fact, we would encourage you to consider other sources for content. It's just that not through the DCS. So you can order copyright-free paid content from anywhere else, and there are suppliers. And some further down, there is a mention of Reprints Desk, who are actually a partner with us in a similar sort of way to EHES, but for other sectors for the NHS. Now, as Imogen said, any kind of integration takes a long time and is complex, but we obviously are aware that they are sort of perhaps a potential other option. I'm not sure about a webinar right now, but we certainly would not discourage you from exploring their services. I believe their services, you know, you have to pay a subscription fee to use them, I believe. I'm not absolutely sure. So it gets quite complex, but you know, we as long as they're copyright fee paid at the moment, we're quite happy for you to explore other sources. And we are going to be looking at this in terms of strategically what would work best for CLA in the long run.
And of course, once you have the copyright fee paid copy, then you're able to upload it to the DCS and distribute it to students as you otherwise would. Stephen, where should we go next? Back up to the top?
Yeah, we can go back to the first question, which I think is partially answered. But I don't know if you had a chance to go
so Kevin's
regarding EPUBs.
Kevin's first question was about EPUBs, and he makes the point that they are EPUBs versus PDFs. I mean, essentially, they're superior in so many ways. They're much more accessible, preferable for users with disability, and etc. etc. And of course, the Cortex Reader does support EPUB. Yes, we agree. We would like to. It's something that we've been talking about, working towards. We absolutely will consider it. It's just the reason it's not done is because it's complex, and we are working through the complexity and hope to be able to bring it. But I don't want to promise a timeline because it might take a while.
So this question that just came in for James, it says, James, isn't it only certain libraries that can provide CFP copies?
I just picked that one up now. So to provide a CFP copy, you need to pay the copyright fee to somebody, and we will accept the copyright fee. We have a document delivery license, which we send out a price book, which is prices set by publishers generally, although there is a default price. And we have a list of all the organisations that take that license from us, which we have on our website, and we can share in the chat, I think, because it's also in the email that we've sent out regarding EHES. So yes, libraries, any library can provide a CFP copy as long as they do it under a license of some kind, and we do offer that license. So hopefully that answers the
because
question.
this is the DCS webinar, I will also add that link is in the dashboard notifications at the moment as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, James. So Kevin just added a question and I would say also a way of expressing what we would like to see. So it says the Bridges Library is okay for chapters, but our experience with them getting articles is not great. So an alternative second option from within the DCS when ES fails will be helpful. Is there something that you'd like to add to that, Imogen?
No, I just like to, that's interesting. So basically having an alternative copyright fee option for journal articles. Is there a source that you find is successful? I don't know if James, Margaret would know of one offhand.
I mean, I know that Rupert Seska very good. One thing I would say is that, this is something we're looking at, but we are aware that there is a certain area where CLA needs to be neutral, because all of these suppliers are our customers and we need to treat all our customers equally. But then again, we also, EHES is kind of our service in partnership with the BL, and therefore we kind of at the moment want our service to be the one that is used. But the cyber failure has kind of caused us to have an internal rethink, but we've only had 3 weeks to consider what to do. So please bear with us for the time being, but we hear the message is coming through.
Yeah.
So
I think there's some questions further back in terms of, there's one about SEPs that I think Imogen might want to answer.
So back up on Kevin's set. Are there any plans to develop any sort of SEPs ordering functionality within the DCS? Again, there are plans, or there are ideas, there are explorations. I would say they haven't got to the state of firm plan, but we are exploring, and I've talked actually about this with many of you in our calls. I think it's something that I think we would like to do. It's when it reaches the point where it's a priority, along with we can see how to do it. Yeah, I mean, James, we've talked about this a lot.
Yeah, it's certainly something that's on our long. Well, it's something we'd like to do, and yeah, it's part of Imogen's role is to determine what's the priority and add things to our list of potential developments. It's certainly something we'd like to do, and yeah, I mean that
it makes sense. So
yeah,
one day we hope.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the questions that are coming in.
Yeah.
And if I can just jump in and answer the latest two questions, because I mean, I think they can be. So paying a copyright fee for a chapter or article already on the DCS but not owned by us. This often comes up as a request.
Yeah.
The number of requests, when we ran it as a pilot, and we also throughout the sort of pandemic period, we and the BL monitored the number of times people asked us about this. The number of requests that we saw during the pilot was too low for us to consider this as a specific IT development. I mean, there were only a small number more than the number of likes to that question. So, which is surprising considering the number of times people ask about it. But when we actually offered it, we didn't really get a lot of use. However, what I will say is, we are looking at all of our transactional services in terms of where we want to go in the long run with SEPs and other things we do in different sectors. And it may well be that we end up with a more flexible infrastructure. That means we can add transactional permissions like this without the associated cost of doing so in the future. So bear with us, but at the moment we don't have the ability to do this. But I will also add that, and it kind of ties into the earlier conversations, any university library can take our document delivery license and charge other universities for copyright fee paid supply. You can kind of become your own British library if you want to. It's up to you, but that opportunity is also there. So there are various means to supply scanned copies of chapters and articles to other people while remaining copyright compliant. And we offer that DocDel license, which permits it. And that kind of leads on to the second question from Kate. Yeah, from Kate. So are the other CFP license libraries still limited to how many copies they can provide each year? Yes and no. We actually have two different sorts of document delivery licenses that allow CFP supply. There is the full one, which is our document delivery license, which is the service that the British Library has and the reprints desk have, where we send them a price list for what publishers require that they charge every quarter or 6 months, I can't remember. And they must report to us exactly what they've done, and then we bill them. And there is no limit on the amount you can do under that, absolutely no limit. So the BL supply thousands and thousands and thousands of articles and chapters every year under that license. There is also a low volume document delivery license, which is for smaller organizations who want to supply up to 1,200 articles a year. And for that one, there is a limit, obviously. And so you may find that some organizations on the list have the low volume version and they're limited, and some don't. But the only factor that makes you decide is your volume. So if you're an organization supplying more than 1,200 a year, then they would move to the full one. So hopefully that explains kind of why there isn't really a limit on the number they can supply.
Thank you very much.
Couple of additions to the copyright fee page. I mean, it doesn't negate anything you've said about the way that we would build it if we get around to it, which is a kind of shift to how we think about these things. But making a couple of people making the point about why it might have been so low during COVID, partly because we do have all these additional Born Digital items, and then Kevin's making a good point about reading lists at that point were maintenance, and so probably most things were already on them, whereas now there's a lot more new material coming on, which is a really good point. So thank you for those additions.
I think just to if I could just interrupt as well, I think the universities that I spoke to, there were just one or two, and the one or two who used it were extremely keen on it, but there was also some lack of awareness as well. So okay. just to throw that into the mix, there wasn't much use, but those that did use it were really enthusiastic about it. So
that's a really interesting question. So I mean, it might just end up sort of swamping the chat, but can I ask you, in universities, did you know about it during COVID, and did you use it? Now so did you know about it? Did you use it?
I mean, there was so much going on at the time.
Exactly.
It could easily have got lost in the glut of messages that came through from various organisations. So, but this is really interesting stuff from Kevin.
It is very interesting, and you know, as I say, nothing changes what James said about the way that we think about builds, and we would like to longer term, and it'll be a slight shift in thinking, but it's all very useful input. So thank you.
So I hope we haven't skipped any question that came earlier. If there's any question that you spot, please feel free to jump in.
There's one about oh sorry, I didn't know what you meant, how much earlier, but there is one about other rights organisations. Is that the one you were about to mention, Stephen?
No, you can go ahead.
Oh yeah, sure. So I think that's one for me. Will there be any negotiations with rights organisations in Austria, Sweden, Italy in the future? So we have agreements with Austria, Sweden and Italy. but their licensing is more based on legislation than in the UK there, in those countries, which means that it's like the money that they can send us, and therefore the sort of the rights we can get from them, are limited to purely reprographic rights. I know it seems really old-fashioned, but they are, which means that we don't have a means to get kind of digital use rights from, or easily get them from those territories. So we do have them, but it's photocopying only, which is really frustrating. I'm literally in a long email conversation at the moment with somebody from the Italian Publishers Association to try to understand why this is the case and whether we can fix it. Sweden, I have raised it recently, and Austria, I do need to raise it again. So it's definitely on my radar as like someone who's responsible for this, and it's a really good question. But those are the reasons why, and we do our best to deal with that. I think if there are any particular publishers, like one major academic publisher in that country who you're like, it's always their books, please tell us, and then I can try and sign them up direct, perhaps. Hopefully that's useful.
Great. Yeah, we can see comments coming in from your question, Imogen.
Yeah, thank you for all of those responses. I think we'd summarize that as mixed awareness, lots of reasons why it might not have been used, but definitely more likelihood of usage now. So this is all super useful. Yeah.
So I cannot spot any other question right now. If there's any question that have not been answered, maybe you can just raise your hand so I can just see, so you can just double check, or you can just please copy and paste it again in the chat so we can double check it. So,
yep. Okay, noted. Thank you.
all right, let's wait a little bit more. Yeah, we have some people knowing about it. Some people not.
Rona has a question, and I know I don't, so perhaps this is James is most likely, or maybe Margaret. Do we know the volume of requests other centres are currently processing, so NLS particularly? Okay. That was an easy answer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your questions so far. We still have a few minutes to go. So just a question about accessibility in the DCS platform covered by the CLA accessibility statement, or does it have its own statement? So that's a question.
That is a very good question. DCS doesn't have its own statement as such, although we do have an article about accessibility, which my predecessor Claire commissioned last year. We are currently doing a review of our accessibility statement and status across the CLA, so we will have more on this in due course. And we're also, I mean, let's be honest, we're aware that the DCS is not the most accessible platform, and again, we hope to be able to address this in the future. So thank you. It's a very pertinent question, Annette. Hopefully we'll have a more concise and positive answer in the near future.
Great.
Kevin's making the amusing but entirely true point that yes, quite. If only.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much for your questions. We just have about 4 minutes left. So I'll give you a chance. You still have the chance to ask anything you want. And thank you so much for your questions so far.
I just wanted to add, I'm sure you all know this already, but if you do have any license-specific questions that are not related to the DCS or you're not sure, please do send them in to us, either via the Education Zendesk or Margaret Education.customers, which is the best which is the best address to use either, I
think,
suppose.
Yeah, either is fine. I think education.customers@cla.co.uk is the easiest to remember.
And if you're not sure if it's DCS or license, send it to either us or the DCS team, and we will sort it out between us. And it's always great to get your questions, and often very educational for us. So thank you. Gives us insight into your day-to-day work flows.
Great. I think that it is for today. Yes, Kevin, the session is been recorded and it will be sent out next week. So thank you so much for joining us today, and big thanks to our panel for joining us today, James, Margaret, and Sarah. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Imogen, would you like to add something?
No, just to say thank you very much for coming and for your questions. It does give us an insight into what's the kind of hot topics, as Sarah was saying, as Stephen said. Obviously, the opportunity doesn't end here. If you have other questions, just send them into the help desk to the education team, to us. We can always pass them over if it ends up in the wrong inbox. That's not a problem. So thank you for your time today. We'll be back in December with what I believe has become an annual Christmas quiz. So we'll be back in December with a Christmas quiz. I hope to see you there. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye then.
Bye.
Bye.